Hello everybody. In this video, we are going to discuss risk analysis in capital budgeting. Let us understand the different sources of risk. The first is project-specific risk. It arises from the fact that the cash flows that we have prepared, these are estimates for the future, and they may not really hold good when the project is being implemented. So therefore, this variation in cash flows is a project-specific risk. Then second, we have competitive risk. This arises from the fact that our competitors may come up with unanticipated actions which will result in harming our cash flows. So that is competitive risk. The third is international risk. This is especially if we are using foreign currency in our operations, and we know that there is fluctuations in the value of foreign currency, and this is international risk. Number 4 is industry specific risk. These are risks associated with a particular industry, either in terms of the technology that is being used or because of the regulatory norms that is being imposed. So these technological changes or the norms may adversely affect our revenues. Then you have market risk, which is affected by the macroeconomic conditions. And we have discussed about this in my previous video on risk and return. So how do we manage risk? Most people will tell you that if you lower the fixed cost and increase the variable cost, you can reduce risk to some extent. So how does it happen? You need to understand it from the concept of a break-even point. We all know that break-even point is the point of no profit and no loss. And only after you cross the break-even point, then the company starts to make profit. So we would like to keep the break-even point on the lower side. And it can be done if you lower the fixed cost. As you can see, there are two formulas put out here for break-even point. One is which counts in terms of units, and the second is which counts in terms of rupees. So if you look at the example here, you have fixed cost of 1000, selling price per unit of 100, variable cost per unit of 35. Then your break-even point works out to approximately 15 units. If we reduce the fixed cost to 650, then our calculation shows that break-even point comes down to 10 units. Similarly, you can work out by using the formula given for the in rupee terms. So you can see here that the contribution margin ratio is 0.65, and as per the formula, break-even point is fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratio. So if fixed cost was 1000, the break-even point is coming to 1539. And when the fixed cost is reduced to 650, the break-even point is at rupees 1000. So the sooner we can achieve our break-even point, the lesser is the risk for us. Second is pricing strategy. We are normally told that if the price is on the lower side, it will stimulate demand and there will be more sales, volumes will grow up. All right. But please remember that lower price will raise the break-even point. If you can see the example here, you have fixed cost of 1000, selling price per unit is 100, variable cost per unit is 35, and so our break-even point was 15 units. If the selling price is reduced to 50, our break-even point goes up to 67 units. So it is not always that the lower price can help you to manage risk. Sometimes it is necessary to start with a premium pricing, enter the market, and then you can lower the price gradually. Third is sequential investment. So you don't need to start your project all at once in a large size. The idea is that you start small and then you gradually expand later so that you can manage your risk comfortably. Number 4, gather more information. The more information you gather, it will improve the quality of your forecast and also the quality of your estimated cash flows. Number 5, lower financial leverage. If you have debt in your capital structure, you have a fixed interest burden that you have to pay, irrespective of whether you are making a profit or loss. So while you are yet to achieve your break-even point, it may be advisable that you keep your debt as low as possible or try to do without it. Number 6 is insurance. Yes, our assets have to be insured from physical damage, and along with that, the key person also has to be insured. When we talk of key person, we are talking of that person without whom the company will not be able to survive. So God forbid if something happens to that person, your company is going to face a major loss. So therefore, you need to do a key person insurance. Then long-term arrangement with suppliers. If you have such a supplier agreement for a long term, 3 years, so then it ensures that you will get your raw materials at a predictable price. You won't have to worry about price fluctuations of your inputs. Similarly, you can do one with your buyer. This will eliminate your revenue risk. And finally, strategic alliance. So this is for projects which are very large and a single company is not being able to handle it on its own. So if it joins hands with another company who can implement this, then it is possible that you can reduce your risk to a great extent. Number 10, use derivative instruments like options and futures to reduce financial risk. Number 11, cut the time to market. So if you are starting a project which has a new product, ensure that you can make it reach the market as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will find some competitor coming up with a similar product and selling it in the market, and therefore you will lose out. And number 12 is finally do a worst scenario analysis and prepare contingency plans accordingly. So how is it done? You can do project selection under risk by the following methods. Number 1 is judgmental evaluation. So what is done here is that the company takes into account the risks and returns associated with the project, and then based on past experience will come to a decision whether to go ahead or not. So this is a very informal way of making up the mind. There is no formal technique being used out here. Second is the use of the payback method. So you use the payback method, and the projects that have longer payback time, you will eliminate them. You said that we are not going to do this. See, we want projects with a shorter payback period because we want to recover our initial investment at the earliest. And by doing so, we are reducing our risk. Number 3 is to apply risk-adjusted discount rates. So a replacement project normally does not have any risk associated with that, and therefore you can use the weighted average cost of capital for the discount rate. Expansion is slightly riskier than the replacement. So what we do, we have added a 2% out here. But please keep in mind these percentages that I am mentioning here are very arbitrary. Then investment in related lines is riskier than an expansion. So therefore we are adding 4% to our WACC. And investment in unrelated lines is extremely risky. Therefore we are adding 8% to our WACC. And with this new risk adjusted discount rates, we will calculate the NPV of the project. And the last method is known as certainty equivalent. So it works like this. By now you have understood that when we do our NPV, we take the cash flow after tax multiplied by the present value using the WACC, and then we subtract the initial investment. So in the certainty equivalent method, what is being done is that this cash flow after tax is being multiplied by a factor alpha, and alpha can take values from greater than 0.1 to less than 1. So what you do here is that this cash flow after tax is being multiplied by this alpha, and the result that we get is equivalent of saying that this cash flow is guaranteed, kind of, it is assured. All right. So this assured cash flow is only after multiplying by the coefficient. Now once this portion is assured, then the risk is not there anymore. So therefore we don't use the WACC. We are going to use the risk-free interest rate and then calculate the present value. So by using the certainty equivalent coefficient, we are transforming the expected values of uncertain cash flows, remember uncertain cash flows, into their certainty equivalent. And as I said, risk is removed to an extent, so risk-free interest rate is used for discounting purpose. Now you may wonder, where is this alpha coming from? This alpha will be provided by the company, and they have made this calculation of alpha based on their past experiences of their projected cash flows and comparing it with the actual that was received. So by doing this, you are converting the uncertainty into a certainty and then doing your NPV. So if NPV is positive, you will go ahead with the project. Finally, let us have a look how risk analysis is done in practice. Number 1, the company will go for conservative estimation of revenues. This means that all your revenues will be estimated on the lower side. So even after having revenues on the lower side, if you can still manage to have a positive NPV, then that project is good. Second, you will do that you must have safety margin in cost figures. So what we are doing here is that we are inflating the cost figures so that the estimates are on the conservative side, na? And after having cost figures on the higher side, if you still have a positive NPV, then we will go ahead. Third is the flexible investment yardstick. Say for example, you are using the IRR as a yardstick. All right. So for different kinds of projects, you can have different cutoff rates. So if it's a very simple project, you will say that it is all right if the IRR is just marginally greater than the cost of capital. You will go ahead. But if it's a complicated project, maybe you will say that the IRR has to be substantially greater than the cost of capital. So therefore, companies use flexible investment yardstick. Then there are two more things which are done. It is called the sensitivity analysis and the scenario analysis. Sensitivity analysis is known as what-if analysis. We can measure the changes in NPV due to changes in the underlying variables, and one variable is changed at a time. if you recall your cash flow table, you had revenues, then you said less cost, all right, and then you had depreciation which was to be subtracted, all right, and which led to profit before tax. So if we consider just these three variables, revenue, cost and depreciation, what we will do is that we will change the values of these variables but one at a time. For example, I can say let me change the revenue figures and see what happens to the NPV. Or I will say let me change the cost figures and see what happens to the NPV. So in effect, we are changing one variable at a time and we are trying to measure the change in the NPV. Then you can do a scenario analysis. So there are three common scenarios: pessimistic, expected and optimistic. So in this analysis, several variables are changed at the same time according to the scenario, and then the NPV is calculated. So for example, if you had a normal scenario with the revenue figures and cost figures given to you, and then you try and see that what is going to be in a pessimistic scenario. So for a pessimistic scenario, you will reduce the revenue, all right, you will increase the cost and then see the effect on NPV. So have you noticed that I am changing two variables simultaneously and trying to see the effect on NPV? I can change more variables. I can change revenue, I can change cost, and then I will also say that maybe the tax rates will go up. All right, so therefore three variables I am changing simultaneously because this is a very pessimistic scenario and I am taking all negative kind of figures. Okay, so and then I will calculate the NPV. Similarly, I can do for a optimistic scenario. So in an optimistic scenario, I will say my revenues will be more than normal and I will say cost is going to be on the lower side. Tax is also going to be on the lower side, and then I will calculate my NPV. So you have three scenarios. And as a manager, you need to check out on the worst scenario and see what is the NPV. So if under this worst pessimistic scenario, you still have a positive NPV, I think you can fairly go ahead with the project. So this was about risk analysis in the context of capital budgeting. Thank you very much for tuning in.